My name is Jonathan Parks, and welcome to Jonathan's Nature Crafts. I must inform you that I do not live in this house by myself, but live here with other people. Sometimes other members of the household may have to walk through areas where I might be recording with other family members on the phone. If you hear any noise like that, please feel free to disregard. We are doing our best to get noise-canceling equipment, which may at least keep you from hearing exactly what is being said. Thank you for considering. Well, I came on to kind of continue this series, and probably little things I wanted to mention about work today. There's this lady I work with. She brings in Pepsis and Mountain Dews in bottles for everybody and keeps them in the fridge. And I'd say, for one thing, that I didn't know for a long time whether they belonged to somebody in particular or if they were for everybody, but it did turn out that she told me yesterday she bought them for everybody to share. So it turned out that I ended up getting a Pepsi yesterday, and y'all, if you know about my kind of issues with how it is, my blood pressure, that's kind of the reason why I told her I'd usually probably take more diet drinks rather, and I'd probably be bringing my own. She said, "Oh no, I can get them for you." And today she brought me a Diet Pepsi and told me it was in there for me, and I got to talking to her and with our assistant manager about just some of the things about my high triglycerides and my sugar being at pre-diabetic level, and they just said something like, "Oh, you better watch it." And then I kind of said, "Well, the sugar and carbs, yes, I am watching." I said, "But I drink caffeinated drinks for my energy." Then that she said, "Oh no, you better stop. That's not good for your heart." I'd say, one day I'll probably find that out for myself. I mean, it could very well be. There might have been a time or two when my doctor might have suggested that. I don't remember it, though, and the thing of it is, there's just some things I don't give up anyway in life. So that's kind of the little story of the day. And I'd say as of now, we'll get back on and kind of work about these little Santa Claus figures or Saint Nicholas figures. And I already kind of uploaded the first video to this and even used a thumbnail of one that was made out of walnut and kind of a demo of what these are supposed to look like in the end once I get finished with them. And we'll kind of let y'all know a little thing I've done here, and just kind of, I'd say, like, just scraped away the wood up at this part of them. I mean, the ones from walnut, I kind of did that from, I'd say, like, on the last video, but decided this morning before work I'd take care of these other four, the ones from mahogany and African mahogany. So with all this little work we like to put into things, I'm sure that when these all get painted out, they're going to turn out much better. I might go ahead and try to do a little demo of something I do when I kind of make little lines on them. Oh, I tell you, and I just hate it when the screen does that. It just goes up large like that. I say that there's a little place around the bottom of the hem where one more line goes. One more line comes about this way. There's another one, I say, that comes about this way, and we come down to where we make this other little last line and take it a little further across the body of the Saint Niklaas, and then we'll have a place here where we will make this other line here right in the back where we make another slit there. I say that with a little business coming this way, we can kind of make it so we can see just what all we learn in life about all the little things we do and have in life. And then when it all comes down to just a little work we have for us, we can kind of see how these little figures are just a little meaningful in ways. And so I say it's all going to be the work that it comes down to be, and we're just making these lines just in the right places where they need to be. And so it's just the work that makes its way to us. See how we all just kind of make things happen for us, and see little bright little lightning things that come our little ways, and see all grace and glory and all that comes around to us, to see a little light of day in us. I tell y'all that this is just what we're making it down to being. And these little lines we carve or draw or make, we're going to kind of make little cuts along these lines to try to get things just in the good places. And I say that this is just one of those things where we find what our gifts are. I'd like for you to share a little something. I mean, what do you think your best gift or talent is? I'll tell a little story about a time when I was in a class that was about jobs when I was in high school, where they were teaching us about work and how that sometimes work can kind of depend on our talent. And we had a substitute teacher one day, but she asked each of us what our talent was. I mean, at that age, I'd say I probably denied that I had one and told her I didn't. Then she says, "Oh, I'm sure you do." But I'll tell you, a little issue at that age was that probably just didn't have the talents I wanted to have. Probably just didn't say I had any, because I just didn't have the most popular ones. Didn't really have the types of talents that fit you in with your peers. The type that your peers really look for, or the types of talents that make you popular. The most popular ones I always knew were some of the ones who were the best athletes or the best musicians, and some of that stuff I'd say wasn't quite within my range, but didn't always just know back then, even though I hadn't started carving yet, even how good I was on the scroll saw back then. Because I say a little fancy work can make things a little ways to us, to where we can just see that we'll have talent in ways we may not realize. And all the little things I tell you all about, like, I mean, even whenever I was a teenager, I'd tell you I'd take the wood and make little bizarre things. And I could tell you a little story, but not much time to tell it, because we're going to get around to carving these now. And for that little line in the back, yes, we'll place it along here as well, and make these so we see a little face and time in us. Details are great. I mean, these Santa Clauses, they're just going to be unto us a whole nother mystery, I say. I always love all the old stories about St. Nick, and I tell you, even in the springtime and in the summertime, I always like going out places and seeing the looks of any kind of Santa or St. Nick I can find in crafts. And so I say that we're probably going to get a little work done along this way, and maybe, just maybe, I say, take a little tool, a gouge, kind of cut along that place in the back. Perhaps I say, try to do your best to keep your hand away. I'd say this is probably a good place to cut, right up to the edge of this pan. And you don't want to carve over your lap without something like a pan in your lap, because I tell y'all, there's probably been times I've cut myself in the leg, or maybe one time I cut myself pretty deep in the leg doing that, so I learned not to do that again for sure. And even in the book, they might have suggested you use different gouges, but I sometimes like to use the ones that I feel rather suited to use. And I say that this little flexi cut set I have was one that Calvin Grant suggested to me when I was kind of asking about little gouges to carve spoons from, because it had one little gouge in it that was good for the spoons. The one he suggested kind of said something about how sharp they'd be even if you were using a glove, and how you had to be careful of your hand. I mean, believe me, I've learned all about that, and there was kind of a time when I used to use like a little basic like gouge that it was from espresso or something like that, kind of like similar to X-Acto, and I'd say with that little piece of gouge, occasionally I'd kind of poke myself in the wrist, but that gouge was never too sharp. I'd say if it poked you too far in the wrist, it could probably make blood run out of your heart, because that's where your veins flow, from your heart. So just a little caution to take there. And that's kind of also why it's like when they talk about blood coming through the veins, it's like how that old hymn goes, there is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins. And that little hymn is referring to Jesus, the Savior, because it's a little fountain of blood that washes away your sins. I'll tell y'all that this is just one little thing I have done so far, but I'd say when it comes down to it, I mean, there's other little marks you make, and I say that there's just little times when we're going to kind of make this little cut, and the little cut that is around the hem, and put a little work into old Saint Niklaas. And I say these can come out a little bit better. I will tell you, around Christmas time, I kind of gathered something from the side of the road that happened to be some pieces of artificial Christmas tree, probably like an artificial fir tree or something like that, and kind of undid the wires, took them apart, decided these would be good for making some good crafts, and maybe even, to that matter, when it comes down to it, after we get these painted, maybe kind of drill a little hole right about where the muffler is, and just kind of like put a little bit of a branch in there. That's kind of what the original carving book by Rick Butts suggested, was that you put something like that into St. Nicholas's sleeve cuff to kind of make it look like he's holding a little branch or something. But sometimes, just sometimes, All we got to do is be a little cautious because, you know, there's been some of those old Santas that carried those old things. Like there was old Bell's Nickel, who, according to a German folktale legend, he carried a little, while St. Nicholas went around giving gifts to all the good kids, Bell's Nickel was his traveling companion who carried around a switch with which to beat the bad kids. Let's be thankful that in our society today, people don't do that anymore. You know? And I say, some people have special interests. I happen to know a lady and her daughter who do have a special interest in the Santas who are like that. But I'd say that I just know about them because I've carved so many out of that Cindy Jocelyn Carhart book, Carving Santas from Around the World, that is just where I've learned the little steps to it. And as for now, we can kind of see how we kind of did this little line for the hymn. Might try to do it with a couple more. Maybe do it with this mahogany one here. Try to make this line just about where we're going to need it to be when it comes down to a nice little looking good Santa Claus. And this is where, like in the old days, Santa didn't wear a suit, he just wore a robe. And I say that there's been different patterns I've used for different Santa figures over the years, and probably got a couple cut out over there for ones that are of Santa, like getting ready to slide down the chimney, and for a little tiny kind of work like this, we got places to go. And I tell y'all that this is just kind of like the place where we see the best little things we have. Life can really be good to us in ways, make us see things that we may not have already known. And you can kind of learn more about these legends from me. I'll carve and I will tell you about them because I've kind of studied so much. I've loved history a lot in life and really always enjoyed reading about interesting people. And I say that there's just a lot of good things and a lot of good things we learn and hear, even these days from kids sometimes, because they can tell us some things that we may not have always known or may not have always heard. Some of these were things I probably looked into myself and found out a little bit about, but you know, there's probably kids in this world, they have autistic mindsets and special interests, kind of like how all my life I always did, and I'd try not to do all the talking in places and in people and in conversations, but it's just probably all a matter of what we know. People always think it's interesting to find things out from us. Someday I'll tell you about a night I was in Pacini's restaurant and overheard a few kids over there having a little conversation about history with their parents and telling each other about it. I kind of recognized the subject and I told them a little more. So, as of right now, I say that there's just a little good to come out of this. So much to say, so much to know. I could tell you all so many stories about Saint Nick and all the little folk tales and legends that have been shared about him. How he provided dowries for the poor man who needed to give his daughters to in marriage, and how that he kind of calmed the boat at sea and saved the sailmen. Something about how there was some kid who was sick and St. Nicholas healed him, and one other kid who he provided crutches for, and the stories go on. I'll tell you more as I get back on and have more to say. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I hope to see you in the next video. Stay tuned.